So, MMI season is upon us once again.
No! No!
And it's about January by the time this will come out. So, a lot of you will have already done some of your MMIs, and if you're like me, actually some of you may have already finished your MMIs. Now there are still a lot of MMIs going on, and I believe only Oxbridge will have completely finished all of their MMIs by now. And it's important also to remember that just because you haven't had your MMI yet doesn't mean that you're any more or less likely to get into a particular university. Now today's video is going to be talking about 3 big tips that I have for your MMIs. Regardless of the environment, how they're set up, or what kind of MMIs they are, these 3 tips should generally apply to every single MMI that you do. Now, we're going to go through these tips in sort of order of which I think they're important. So we'll start off with the least important and we'll finish with the most important. And you should be able to apply these to each of your interviews. Some of them require a little bit more time and practice. Some of them you can do the day before your MMI. Hopefully it's useful and hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you do, make sure to like, subscribe, and let's get into it. Okay, so if you don't know who I am, my name's Akshi. I'm a second year Imperial College Medical Student, and I'm currently making a batch of videos essentially about MMIs. I know I've left you guys in the past for like a month without videos. I'm aware that when the holidays do finish and I go back to university, I'll be a little bit more busy. So I'm trying to, cram out as many videos as I can now, and I'm going to keep them for the next few months. So hopefully this system sort of works out. I guess we'll see. By the time this is posted, hopefully you should have seen a few videos. So yeah, you can probably tell me if this has worked or not. Anyway, today, like I said, we're going to be going through some MMI tips. Now, a lot of you guys have been asking me, first of all, I haven't heard back from UCL, Imperial, Newcastle, should I be worried? Short answer of it is no, you shouldn't be worried. Universities will keep sending out MMI invites in sort of batches and cycles, so they'll send out a few first, they'll send out a few later. It could take them a few months to get through everybody. The best place to go and check for information is always a university website, or get in contact with the admissions helpline. They will get back to you as soon as they can, and they can confirm basically if they're still sending out invites. The only thing that will make a difference is how you perform your MMI, and that's what this video is going to revolve around. So let's start off with the first tip. The first tip is to practice, and this is probably I say least important because it should be the most obvious, but in terms of the way you practice can really set apart how you perform in your interview. If you practice by just reading off the Medic portal and reading, the information booklets that they give you, you're probably not going to do too well. Now, this isn't a shot at the Medic portal. They are probably one of the best places to go for revision, but you need to be using their materials in the right way. They give you a lot of information, for example, about the National Health Service. Now, your role isn't to memorize that. Your role is to use that, read it, take out your own key points, and then use them in answers. You should always be framing anything that you learn about for the MMI in the context of an answer or question, because that's the way you're going to be tested on it at MMI. It's not going to be an essay, it's not going to be multiple choice, it's going to be you composing your own answer. So usually what they do is they will give you some interview questions at the end of every little section in the Medic portal, or in any other resource like 6Med or Blackstone Tutors, or any Medic resource that you use. They usually do give you some interview questions as well, but you should also be thinking, if you read a passage about when the NHS were created, you should be thinking in your head at the same time, how are they going to test me on this? So they could ask you straight out, when was the NHS founded? It's an unlikely question because it hasn't really got much to do with medicine, but they could ask you that. They'll ask you maybe, how long ago was the NHS founded, and does that matter? And you could talk about when it was founded, and you could say that yes, it does matter because the environment's changed now, diseases have changed now, we're seeing more chronic diseases than we were a year ago. They might ask you, for example, when the NHS was founded, what were the underlying principles? Now, it doesn't exactly require you to have knowledge of when it was founded, but a rough understanding of that whole environment and that whole situation at the time can be helpful to answer that question. So in the same vein, whenever you read something, or whenever you come across a video, or whenever you come across somebody saying something that is going to be relevant to your MMI, you should always be framing it and thinking at the same time, okay, what could they test me on about this piece of information? And if you keep doing that, you're more than likely to come across in your head at least a few questions that you'll get asked at MMI, as opposed to just reading stuff and absorbing it like a sponge. The next tip I'd say is to read up your personal statement. Please do not make the mistake of not reading your personal statement, going into the interview, getting tested on something in your personal statement, and not knowing anything, because that is the worst possible thing you can do. Your personal statement is essentially you writing about 47 lines, which comes to about 400 to 500 words, about yourself and sort of advertising yourself to the interviewer. Now, if you don't know the contents of your own advert, how can it advertise you at all? You need to make sure that whenever you are preparing for your interview, you have read your person's statement and you know what is on it. Now, I'm sure none of you have done the thing where you've got somebody else to write it, or you've paid someone to write it, or, you've made up stuff. I'm sure all of you are very trustworthy people, but even if you haven't lied on your person's statement, it's more than likely that you've forgotten a few things on there. If you've done a lot of clubs, or if you've done a lot of work experience, or if you've done a lot of volunteering, or anything, your person's statement took you months to write, and you made tiny changes throughout the process. You definitely haven't remembered every single bit of that. So if you read your person's statement at least once, I would say 5 times really, to be honest, throughout your preparation for your MMI. Don't read it all at the beginning and then leave it, months for your MMI, because you'll forget. So once you've read it, go through it, read it, make sure you remember everything, understand everything, and again, like we talked about in the previous tip, make sure you're thinking about what could they ask me on this. You'll be surprised. For example, in my personal statement, I had an MMI at an undisclosed university. I'm not going to say where it was, but I spoke about my work experience where I was at a retirement home. They picked up on that, and they actually asked me to talk about dementia for a bit and the science of dementia. So, what is dementia? What are the 4 types of dementia? And if you do, research on your personal statement, this isn't actually very difficult. This is a really easy thing to do. If you've done work experience, for example, at a retirement home, to go and do research on Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, find out how each of them are caused, the treatments, the situation in the UK. They're not going to ask you really in-depth stuff, that you'd have to learn at, for example, university, but they will require you to have some basic knowledge of what you've written down there. So it's not only the simple stuff, you did hockey club, what did you learn in hockey? That's a really easy question. They're going to ask you some interesting stuff. So if you've talked about work experience, they might pick up on the biology of what you saw at your work experience. So do be aware, reading your personal statement, picking out key points and any science that you've written down. It doesn't have to be blatant science, anything that they can, latch onto and then use that as a sort of a key to talk about science. That's really important to identify. So please do that. Throughout your interview preparation, please do go over your personal statement 5 times, please. It's a really important step and it can save you a ton of embarrassment come interview time. Now the final step is public speaking. This is probably the most common problem people have at MMI. We're just shy, and that's perfectly normal. I am a very shy person. Believe it or not, I didn't just, get up on the day of my interview and turn into this talkative person. This doesn't happen overnight. It's a long thing that you have to prepare for, and you have to get used to talking to people. Now, there are a few ways that you can do this if you have a lot of time. For example, if you're in year 11 and watching this video, or year 10 or year 9 or whatever, year 8, year 7 even, I don't know why you'd be watching this if you're in year 7, but join a debating club, join some sort of public speaking club. Even if it's for a year or for half a year or something, or if you just want to have a few weeks there, go and spend some time there, get some exposure. It'll be really, uncomfortable and you'll feel really weird, but push yourself, because it is really important to publicly speak before you get to MMI. It doesn't have to be debating club, that's the go-to cliche when people want to practice public speaking, but you can do anything. For me, it was personally, I believe, my volunteering. So I spent a lot of time volunteering at an old age home, and I was really shy going into this. I struggled to make conversation, but at an old age home you have to put in even more effort. A lot of these people suffer from neurodegenerative diseases like dementia, Parkinson's, and they can't really communicate that well. They've got short-term memory, they've got attention deficits, they have aphasia, which is essentially where they can't communicate too well. So it's difficult to communicate with them even more. So that pushes you to develop your language skills, not only to the average speaking person, but also to people who maybe can't communicate as well. And that's a super helpful thing to do. Now, not only does this help your public speaking skills, but it'll also tick off the volunteering section on your MMI or your personal statement or your medical application. So it's doing 2 things at once, which is kind of time efficient. So that's kind of where I got my public speaking from. I never joined any debating societies or clubs, but you can, if you enjoy doing that, do that. But literally anywhere where you get to go and speak to people who you have never spoken to before, or outside of your local circle, that's really important. So yeah, I would definitely recommend to get somewhere where you can practice public speaking. Now, a lot of you guys will be, here a few weeks before your MMI. You'll be here maybe a few days even, and you still are feeling a little bit anxious. The best way to do this is to practice with your parent, to practice with your friends, siblings. If none of you feel like doing that, if you still feel a little bit weird about practicing with them, get your pet, get a dog or a cat or a fish. Don't steal a pet from somebody else, but if you own one, do it with them. They have no idea what you're talking about because they cannot converse with humans, but it is practice, that there's a living thing in front of you and you are talking to it. It goes really quickly, to be honest. It goes about, it takes you obviously about an hour to do the interview, but it takes you roughly, it feels like it's like a minute. It's really quick. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Anyway, I do hope that video helped with you guys. I hope to calm your nerves a little bit. I hope to give you some pointers to, go and do some more revision on. This isn't a complete guide. This isn't a full package of everything you need to do for your MMI. I have left out a lot of things here because I want to make this a short video, not too long. So yeah, I do hope it helped. If you want me to make any other videos, I do have another video coming up soon about reading a scientific article / book at MMI and telling, the interview about it from a comment, which, I'll leave here, but somebody commented, I am doing that, don't worry. I just need to have a look at which books I read so that I can sort of bring that back and, chunk up my video a little bit with that. So yeah, I do need to do a little bit of background reading for that, but I will make that video as soon as possible. And yeah, I hope that helped. Best of luck with your preparation for the MMIs. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe if you wouldn't mind. I'd really appreciate that. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. So yeah.